Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. As you can see, I've got my cat here with me. She's gonna probably leave just now. I thought I would do a bit of a kind of different sketchbook tour for you today. This is a handbook journal that I've had for longer than I care to admit. I've had this since 2015, and it's kind of taken me through lots of different phases in my life. And I'm now at the point where I need to complete this sketchbook before I start 2025. I can't, I don't want to go into 2025 having the same journal that I've had, the same sketchbook that I've had for nearly 10 years. So I'm going to take you guys through some of this. There's a few things I'll probably skip just because they don't kind of add too much. But the first page that I had is just my name, and I made this kind of little drawing. These were kind of paint pens that I used for the kind of teal background, which I really liked. This was obviously before paint pens were kind of really kind of big as they are now. What I did with this sketchbook was, at first I was focusing way too much on making kind of completed pieces. And so you can see as I go through that I was really focusing on kind of each page, or kind of both pages, being their own kind of piece. And I really like this drawing. I think this sketchbook has seen me through lots of different experiments with line work, and also with, so basically kind of fine liners, pen work, but also started playing around with watercolors in this one. But yeah, I was focused way too much on kind of making initial kind of big pieces. I love doing these kind of line works. I find it really kind of relaxing to do that kind of repetitive motion. And it just helps me feel kind of balanced when I'm doing kind of something like that. So there's a lot of that throughout the sketchbook. And I also started doing some kind of different things. I started playing around with how I was kind of using lines, and this was with a like a brush pen that I did this. I'd never really done something like that with a brush pen. So while I was kind of still limiting myself to making kind of little pieces within my sketchbook rather than treating it as a sketchbook, I still think that I was able to kind of experiment, and I'm glad that I did do that. I think this was with pastels, so there was a little bit of kind of trying out different mediums in this sketchbook, some kind of pencil drawings, but a lot of line work. And again, here I was kind of doing a bit more with my lines and kind of playing around with them. I was really happy with this when I did this one. I was watching Orange is the New Black when I was kind of doing this. And so some of these kind of little parts of my sketchbook I like more than others. I don't think this one really says too much to me. I love the line work, and I would have probably found it really relaxing to work on it, but it's not like a great piece I'm really kind of happy with. This one I remember really enjoying doing. I was driving home one evening and there was a beautiful sunset, and I was like, oh, it would be really beautiful to paint something like that, but in kind of pointillism. So I did. I don't remember how long it took. Probably it took a very long time, but also it's pretty simple. It's just a small kind of grade of colors, so maybe it wasn't that long. But it was nice to kind of have that freedom to explore. But again, I felt and I do feel as I look back on this now that it is very limited by creating kind of fixed pieces rather than just playing around with things, and treating it as more of a sketchbook. I think this is the lead singer of Cage the Elephant. This was the period when I was kind of listening to lots of that type of music. And this is the lead singer of Portugal the Man. I remember that I saw Portugal the Man open for Cage the Elephant in concert one day, a very long time ago. And so that was probably what was kind of behind all of this. A lot of the things in this sketchbook, or a few things maybe, are things that are inspired by lyrics. So this is a song called Atomic Man by Portugal the Man. And later on, you'll also see sometimes when I'm listening to music and I'm kind of doing my little doodles and kind of doing lots of line work, things like that, I will write the lyrics in depending on how I'm feeling and what the lyrics say and how they contribute to what I'm talking about or what I'm kind of drawing. These This is when I got some watercolor pencils, and this is the first kind of experimenting that I did with them, and it was absolutely not successful. It took me a very long time to become familiar with watercolors and understand watercolors. Before this, before I even started this sketchbook, I really considered myself to be a black and gray artist, and also lots of charcoal, things like that. So this was all very, very new to me, and you can see I was playing around with it. It really wasn't going very well. It was not very successful, and this isn't the appropriate notebook for watercolor. So that also kind of posed a challenge, but I'm glad I did it because it opened up a whole new world. I mean, watercolor is what I use most of now, so this is the kind of the beginning of that. And I remember I also got myself some black ink, and I was kind of playing around with that as well. I thought it was really helpful to do this kind of exercise, getting to know the colors that I had. And again, here it just wasn't very successful. What I was doing is I was kind of blocking it in like I would a colored pencil, and then kind of going over it with a brush pen. And so that just doesn't really work to get the proper types of like effects that I was going for. I'm sure some people do it like that, but some people are probably much more successful with it than I was at this stage when I was coming to grips with it. And then there were some things that were a little bit more kind of successful, and I was, I was really happy with the way that this little path came out, and you can see that this was not the right type of paper for this, but I was happy with the gradient and the way that the sun looked here. I was happy with the different kind of variations in value that I got on this pillow. So yeah, not great, but I was really happy with how I was kind of learning to work with these. And I did a lot of kind of playing around with values, things like that. And I drew, this is my parents' dog. And this one I was really proud of. There's some things in here that were kind of working well and some things that didn't work well. What I really liked is that I got the kind of perspective okay. It wasn't great, it's not 100%, but I got some of those values in. This chair, I really like the way that turned out, and this one over here as well. So yeah, it's all part of a learning journey, and this did feel like kind of a safe space to do that in. The next few pages were kind of things that I like wrote down and things that I was planning out, so I'm gonna kind of skip over those. This is something that I really liked actually. So this was a kind of self-portrait from a picture that we took at my now husband, then partner's graduation. And I did all the kind of cross-hatching, and I didn't get the proportions right, didn't get the features right. However, I love the way that I kind of just went for it and tried it with the cross-hatching, and there's some parts of this that I really like. And so yeah, it was cool to kind of experiment with that. There were some periods when I used this much more as maybe a bit of a bullet journal and some kind of like journaling bit, so I'm going to just skip over those pages. They don't really add too much to kind of what the sketchbook is meant to be about. I was just using this. Then later I got a bullet journal, and so I moved over into that. I did use it a bit as a bullet journal for a period because this was just what I carried with me all the time when I was going to work, and so it made sense, but then I got a proper bullet journal. These were some more sketches. I never finished this one. I really like using pointillism to do kind of little portraits, and you can see this is an uncompleted little drawing of Joni Mitchell, and obviously I put in the lyrics to that song. I would have been listening to Joni Mitchell a lot around that period of time, and that's why I probably felt inspired to draw her and incorporate some lyrics in there. Again, here I was listening to Gravity by Sarah Bareilles quite a lot during this period, and so I would have incorporated the lyrics into this and into my drawings. This is another uncompleted kind of drawing of the living room where my partner and I, my husband and I were living at that point in time. And I really liked it. I mean, it was very simple. This kind of is something that I do now as well. So my line work, I like to keep it simple. I'm not really... I appreciate realism, but I really like kind of taking things down so that they're not so realistic. So I like the way that the chair looks like the back of that chair, but it's not 100% realistic. This little drawer here that was made of wicker looks like what it's meant to look like, but it's not super realistic. And so this was kind of a nice kind of shift for me. Around this time, I was kind of really struggling to figure out what to do with my sketchbook, and I was really struggling to find inspiration. And so I decided that I would do little kind of maps for some countries that I had been to, and I originally thought I was going to write out some little bits that I remembered or some key memories from some countries that I had visited, but that faded out really quickly. I didn't actually end up doing this, but I did think that this was quite successful for me at that point in time. It was a successful use of those watercolor pencils that I had, because I was able to kind of, you know, get the edges a little bit darker, and kind of bring a little bit of kind of liveliness to the little sketch that I was doing. So this probably kind of marks a shift where I was really struggling with creativity. And that kind of continues on for quite some time in my sketchbook. These are some kind of drawings where I was really struggling with getting anything down on paper. Was really struggling. And so I asked my my partner, now my husband, to just kind of, if I could just draw him, and he was just kind of doing things in the kitchen. I think he was chopping things in the kitchen here, and I was just trying to draw him. We did some little things like that where we kind of made it fun. He was also trying to draw me. And at one point I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna do what so many kind of people recommend and just scribble on a piece of paper, really break things down into simple shapes, make a drawing, and then draw on top of that drawing, and then draw on top of that drawing again, just to try to get some inspiration. I mean, I was really struggling. I had, for this kind of layout here, I had an idea of what I wanted to draw. I wanted to draw these kind of little maps of the world, but have like the kind of compass style to them, and I wanted to make them really kind of pretty, and I just couldn't execute on any of the ideas that I had. I was really going through a tough period in my life, and I think that I could see that, like looking back now, I can see that reflected in my sketchbook, and what was happening with my sketchbook was all over the place. Again, another kind of unfinished piece. There are just kind of echoes and echoes of ideas and things, but me just not being able to execute. Again, I think because I was in such a difficult place in my life at that point. And then I started kind of thinking, okay, maybe I just need to be doing little small things rather than bigger pieces. And this probably kind of marks the point where I started to more actively play around with my watercolor pencils, and I started trying to kind of get them to blend together, and I started trying to get some values out of them and things like that. And I think at this point is probably when I moved away from kind of completed pieces in here, which I think was holding me back a lot. And I think that's why I was struggling so much with my sketchbook, is because I wanted to have completed pieces. Whereas here I started kind of just using things a bit more loosely, maybe planning some things out before doing them in a separate sketchbook, and using, you know, I think I got inspiration from these on Pinterest, or I looked at a picture of a cupcake, something like that. So I was kind of like looking at things and trying to kind of draw them, playing around with the watercolor pencils, still trying to figure them out. They were still quite foreign to me. I was making kind of, I think this one was inspired from something that I saw on Pinterest or online. When I first got into drawing, I was drawing things like Winnie the Pooh characters and other types of kind of characters like that. And so I think what I was trying to do was maybe get back to that a little bit with some of the things I was drawing at this point. And something I've always liked to do is to blend lots of different types of patterns and put them into a piece together. And here again, you can see I've got some lyrics from a song I was listening to while I was doing this, which is something that I've always really enjoyed, listening to music, making some kind of meaningless kind of patterns that come together into a bigger piece that looks really nice, and embedding those lyrics of the songs that I'm listening to within that. Here I can see that I was trying to put some like color into the drawing I had done before of that raccoon. And here again, some kind of line, some kind of ink work. You can see I was listening to some music again because it's incorporated into the piece. I really like this one. I think I maybe saw the sign on Pinterest or something like that. Or maybe I took that picture when I took a picture of the side when we were in New Zealand, something like that. But I love the way that these things kind of came out. These are some of my favorite kind of pages in this sketchbook. And this kind of marked a different point in my life where I believe at this point I had purchased the Winsor & Newton Cotman watercolors, and I started actively trying to play around with drawing something first and getting some line work on the paper and then kind of adding color to it. Now, I didn't do these in here. I was using my sketchbook as an actual sketchbook, and I was making these kind of drawings on another, like in a different sketchbook. Maybe I'll do like a tour of this one at another point in time. So I was using my sketchbook as an actual sketchbook before kind of moving pieces to something else, which I think was really, I really liked that. I took the pressure off what I was creating in here. And I was making notes because I was totally new to blending colors. So I was trying to kind of think of the different colors and how I was going to put them together and map it out a little bit, which I think for somebody that was new to using color was something that was really helpful at the beginning. This isn't really something I do now, but I'm much more comfortable with blending colors. Back then, I had no clue what I was doing with blending colors, so this kind of exercise made it really helpful for me. And then I just kind of made lots of doodles. This I tried to start, it just wasn't very successful. I wasn't feeling it, so I didn't kind of stop. I just stopped, I didn't finish it. And I was maybe going through a period where I was striving too much for kind of beautiful completed pieces like this. So when I wasn't able to kind of execute that, I was getting caught up with making things kind of perfect in this book, and that's not what a sketchbook should be. It shouldn't be about perfection. So I was trying to remind myself it's okay to not have everything be totally perfect. This was a little kind of sketch for something that I ended up painting in acrylics later. I didn't end up doing the checkered background. I think I did a blue background. The checkered background was too complicated for what I was trying to do. I just didn't have that level of precision, and I knew if I tried to go for that precision and the boxes weren't perfect, that it would just make me really upset, which is ridiculous, but that's how I felt. So I went for a blue background instead when I did end up painting this. And I used this page as a place to kind of test out some of the different colors that I was using. This was when I was, so, you know, this is when I started using my sketchbook as kind of like a thinking place, but I stopped using it to kind of document things and kind of just draw everyday things. I wasn't doing any of that, and I wanted to do that. So I started trying to do that, but I found it really difficult to keep up with. I just wasn't, again, I was going through a difficult period in my life. And so I wasn't really finding the inspiration to draw things like just regular everyday things from what I was watching on television, or, you know, having a glass of wine and watching television and having the Xbox controller be on the table, things like that. And I tried. I mean, you can see here, this is July 2021, and there's no more entries until January 2022, when all I could manage to draw was this little tiny sketch. I mean, I just was really struggling to get anything down. I tried to make more of an effort. I tried to kind of play around with my brush pens again. With this particular page, I don't specifically recall, but I imagine I was trying to emulate this type of feel, and I wasn't too happy with this because it just feel like it didn't feel the way I originally thought I wanted it to feel. And I messed up the hand, and so, you know, all these types of things, like where I wasn't really in a great place, just kind of were being really discouraging to me. And that seems so silly to say, because sketchbooks should not be the place where you're striving for perfection, but that's just unfortunately how I kind of was viewing it at the time. So I tried to do more line work, wasn't really happy with it, didn't continue. I tried, you know, watching lots of Kusha Kuna's videos on Draw Tip Tuesday. Tried drawing her, because one of her videos she said just draw whatever's in front of you, and I was watching a video of her, so I drew her. I tried kind of drawing parts of what I could see from my husband. He was sat on the couch next to me, and I was able to draw his face and his ear and his hands. His hand wasn't very successful, but his ear was okay and his face was okay. I tried to draw myself, but I wasn't too happy with how it came out. I was trying to get back into things, but really struggling. And this, I don't even remember what I was doing here. I think I was writing like sayings. And here you can see another kind of unfinished piece. Oh, kitty cat. And she's gonna sit right on my sketchbook. Right, move along. Move along. Good girl. So yeah, another unfinished piece where I was trying to draw what was in front of me and I didn't finish it, but I really liked it. And I think I love this style. For me, this with a little bit of watercolor in it is what makes my heart happy in terms of making art. This would have been something that I think was some of the last things that I created in this sketchbook up until this page. So this drawing and this kind of little pastel drawing here would have been maybe something that I drew at some point in the year 2023. And in 2024, so, you know, I haven't been very consistent in this sketchbook. I've really struggled with art block and things like that, and with the things that have been going on in my life. And in 2024, my husband and I went on a short little road trip to Bruges, and I got myself some supplies. I need you to move. Good girl. And I got myself some supplies. And I got some water-soluble Caran d'Ache markers. So I tried playing around with them in here, but they're not the best for watercolor. So they're not the best for this type of paper, sorry. So that wasn't very successful. You need to move. Good girl. Yes, good girl. And so this point marked a turning point for me. I picked this sketchbook back up in last month, 15th of October 2024, and I wrote down how all the different things in my life that have happened and that I've had this sketchbook through, and I kind of reflected on how I was too focused on creating pieces at first. As the sketchbook kind of went throughout over the past 9 years, I started to use it a little bit more flexibly, and I was really happy about that. But I kind of wrote about how there's been so many things in my life, good and bad, that have happened that I haven't captured in my sketchbook. I haven't used it as my everyday sketchbook. I haven't captured so many things that I would have liked to have captured. All these things that I went through, all the travels, all the trials, the tribulations, the happy things that have happened, the sad things that have happened. I haven't actually documented that in my sketchbook. And this is what I want to do more of. I want to document the things that happen in my life more in my sketchbook. So in my next sketchbook, or towards the end of this one, that's going to be the goal for me. So it marked a bit of a changing point. I mean, I started, no, not yet, no. Come on, good girl. And so I started trying to use this more as a place where I'm practicing things. And so there's a website called Line of Action. And what they do is you can kind of tell the kind of picture generator what you want to kind of work on. And I wanted to work on scenes, and they kind of give you like 10 minutes, or you can choose how long. It could be 30 seconds, 5 minutes. I went with 10 minutes because I wanted to give myself more time. And I just practiced. I practiced just getting down the basic lines of what I was seeing without getting too hung up on making it perfect, and getting some color in there again without getting it too hung up. And I was really happy with these. I think this one's my favorite one. I'm going to be doing more of this in this sketchbook. And then I got a little Go Draw palette, and I was trying to figure out what colors I wanted in there. So I swatched all the colors that I had, and I figured out which ones would kind of give me some nice warm tones and some cool tones. And I do that in here so that I could plan that. And then I did some more kind of, again, block sketches, which I really have enjoyed because they make it feel like a page is not a piece of work. It makes it feel like I'm drawing the smaller things within it, and I really like that. I've been learning a lot from doing this. Again, this isn't the best notebook for watercolor or water-based mediums, but I'm making it work, and I'm totally happy with just playing around with some of the colors in here. This one I learned a lot from. This one's been my least successful one so far, but I can look at that and I can understand why. I didn't push the values enough in this one, and that's why it hasn't been so successful. And so I know going forward that that's something that's going to be really important for me to do. Like I can see here, I was maybe stupidly only blending my browns when I should have been adding in some blues and some purples and getting some deeper tones. So this is what this is all about. It's all about getting that practice in and having that safe space. This is a drawing that I made that was inspired from something I saw on Pinterest. It was kind of like an homage in my mind to a lot of the kind of line work that I've done in the past, and a bit of kind of coming home to that, practicing the hatching, getting different values with hatching, and I really like the way that this came out, and I love the way it spreads across both pages. And then I see lots of people kind of drawing what is in the room around them. And some people do this so successfully and they create some beautiful pieces. And I was really happy with this, the way that this came out. I was trying to not get hung up on making it exactly what it looks like and to play around with some of the kind of the format, you know. So this wall is not, you know, like that. This wall is straight in real life. But for the purposes of this, I just kind of bent it so that everything would fit, and I was being a bit freer with what I was doing and not getting hung up on, trying not to get hung up on things. And I'm really happy with the way this came out. It makes me really motivated to do more things like this, which is what I want my sketchbook to be a place for. I want to capture the things that I see on my daily life. And this didn't even take me that long, and I was really happy with that, because sometimes it's difficult to fit art into my everyday life. And so when I can do this and see that it takes maybe 30 minutes, I'm going to be more likely to do that going forward. Now here I got some really beautiful Schminke granulating watercolors, and I was kind of swatching them. They're really beautiful tones. I'm so happy with the colors I selected. The granulation doesn't show up great on this paper, although here it did come up a little bit better than I thought it would. But I love just kind of playing around with it. I sketched this out here, and then I made this on a piece of 100% cotton watercolor paper. I can actually probably get that out now. Yeah, so then I did it here, and I was really happy with it because I was able to play around with it here, figure out if it was going to work. I ran into some challenges with like colors touching each other that I didn't want on the finished piece, and I was able to kind of problem solve that on this one. So I was super happy with it, and it felt like using my sketchbook as an actual sketchbook. Again, some more line of action practice. And then I painted this scene, which I believe I saw on Pinterest. Or no, actually, I think I saw this on Line of Action, but it was like an actual realistic picture, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to kind of tone it down and make it kind of more my style. So I didn't make too much lines. I just kind of outlined some trees. They're not even great trees, but I love the way that I was able to kind of take that picture and communicate it in my own style. So I was really happy with this. And that takes me to the final 10 or so pages in my sketchbook. You know, my goal is to complete this in 2024. So I'm going to be trying to draw what is in front of me when it is in front of me, and to complete this in this calendar year. I purchased the sketchbook in November or December of 2015. So going into 2025 with the same sketchbook that I've had for nearly 10 years does not feel like an option for me. I want to have a fresh start. It's been a really enriching and amazing past 10 years that have had their own challenges in lots of different ways, and I'm ready for a fresh start in 2025, and hopefully lots of good vibes and good things that are going to come in that year. So that's my goal. I hope you've enjoyed kind of walking this through with me, and yeah, thanks so much for your support. Drop me a comment and let me know which one of the pages you liked, and maybe some feedback if you have any. I'm more than open to receiving some. So have a nice day.